The founder of the far-right U.S. militia group, the Oath Keepers, was found guilty of seditious conspiracy on Tuesday. It's the highest-profile conviction so far in last year's deadly January 6th Capitol attack, and took 3 days of jury deliberations to reach. The verdict against Stuart Rhodes, who wears an eye patch after accidentally shooting himself decades ago, is a major win for federal prosecutors. Rhodes was convicted on 2 other charges and acquitted on 2. Outside the courthouse, his lawyer called the verdicts a mixed bag.
We certainly are thankful for the not guilty verdicts that Mr. Rhodes received. We're disappointed with the guilty verdict.
Prosecutors accused Rhodes of plotting to use force to block Congress from certifying President Joe Biden's election victory over Donald Trump. Rhodes, who testified in his own defense, told the jury he had no plan to storm the Capitol and did not learn that some of his fellow Oath Keepers had breached the building until after the riot had ended. The Yale Law School-educated former Army paratrooper and disbarred attorney is one of the most prominent defendants of the roughly 900 charged so far in connection with the Capitol attack. One of Rhodes' 4 co-defendants, Kelly Meggs, was also found guilty of seditious conspiracy, while the 3 others were acquitted of the charge. Among the multiple charges, all 5 were convicted of obstructing an official proceeding. The 2 charges each carry a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. A number of other Oath Keepers and members of another right-wing group, the Proud Boys, are also due for trial on seditious conspiracy charges in December.
Protesters clashed with police in the Chinese city of Guangzhou on Tuesday night. These videos obtained from social media show people throwing objects at the police. On the other side, dozens of riot police in all-white pandemic gear hold shields over their heads. Guangzhou is a sprawling port city north of Hong Kong in Guangdong province. In videos that seemed to show earlier in the day, people were seen gathering around barricades in a manufacturing hub. Reuters could verify the videos were filmed in Guangzhou, but could not verify the sequence of events, nor what sparked the clashes. However, scenes of protest have become common across China over the past few days, as anger about strict COVID-19 rules 3 years into the pandemic appears to be boiling over onto the streets. National health officials said on Tuesday that China would respond to the, quote, urgent concerns raised by the public, and that rules will be implemented more flexibly. Hours later, officials in Guangzhou said they would allow close contacts of COVID cases to quarantine at home. Meanwhile, in Guangzhou, home to a Foxconn factory making Apple iPhones that has also seen COVID protests, officials announced the orderly resumption of businesses, including supermarkets, gyms and restaurants. Some elderly residents on the streets of Shanghai expressed fear about the easing of restrictions.
I will be pretty worried if curbs are eased, especially for the elderly who haven't been vaccinated. And if it opens up, it will be more troublesome for the elderly to get this disease. Now the state is still providing vaccines, so protect yourself. The state cares about you, so it will get better. If the elderly doesn't get vaccinated, they will be quite worried.
While the easing of some measures appear to be an attempt to appease the public, authorities have also begun to seek out those who have been at recent protests. A Beijing resident told Reuters on Wednesday that police had come to their home and got them to complete a written record. Another resident said some friends who posted videos of protests on social media were taken to a police station and asked to sign a promise that they would not do it again. Beijing's Public Security Bureau did not comment. In a statement that did not refer to the protests, the Communist Party's top body in charge of law enforcement agencies said that China would crack down on, quote, the infiltration and sabotage activities of hostile forces. The wave of civil disobedience is unprecedented in mainland China since President Xi Jinping assumed power a decade ago.
Tech giant Foxconn has been racked by days of protests at its vast plant in Guangzhou, China. Workers demonstrated over pay, poor conditions and strict lockdowns. The crisis could threaten output at a plant which makes 70% of all iPhones. Reuters tracked down one former worker to find out what lay behind the unrest. Mr. Ho, who didn't want to give a first name, said he and many others were attracted by promises of high pay. Foxconn was offering attractive terms as it grappled with strong year-end demand and China's health crisis curbs. But Ho says trouble began when new hires were required to do 10 days in quarantine and pay terms were abruptly changed.
At first we thought to address the issue because we didn't voluntarily go into quarantine. And then we wanted to ask whether quarantine could be counted as working days. And then for the first gathering, we just wanted to discuss these issues. And then we didn't know there might be some people trying to make trouble. So as the situation developed, we assembled and then went down from the dormitory to the gathering. And after, it became what it was.
The Guangzhou plant is essentially a city of 200,000 workers. Since October, Foxconn has enforced a closed-loop system due to renewed health crisis concerns. That essentially cuts the facility off from the outside world. But Ho says workers also lost all faith in what the company was saying.
I left because management was still fairly chaotic, and nothing they said ever counted for anything. So things could change suddenly. We spoke out at night to fight for our rights, but the response could alter by the next morning. Some of us went to fight for our rights, while others just asked questions. After managers answered our questions, we returned to our dormitories, only to find out that the announcement that appeared on apps was different to what they had told us.
Other workers that Reuters spoke to aired similar grievances. Foxconn declined to comment, referring only to past statements. The company has apologized for what it says was a pay-related technical error. If the problems persist through December, analysts say it could cost output of around 10 million iPhones.
USA, USA! That's a big game, man! When I spoke to the coach and the players, I said, you can do this. They went, they did it. God love them. Anyway, just thought you might want to hear.
H&M said Wednesday it would cut 1,500 jobs. The Swedish company wants to reduce costs due to weakening demand from consumers. Rising inflation and the cost of living crisis are squeezing household budgets. In September, H&M launched a plan to save about $190 million per year. That month, it reported lower than expected quarterly sales, up only 3% from a year before at $5.4 billion. The number was below analyst forecasts and underperformed market leader Inditex, which owns Zara. H&M also said Wednesday a restructuring charge of almost $76 million would be booked in the fourth quarter. The world's number 2 fashion retailer employs roughly 155,000 people. Its shares were up over 0.5% in early trade on Wednesday, in line with the broader market.